So welcome. Everybody's happy to be here. So 2015, I moved to Atlanta, and I was trying to just meet photographers that I respected and admired. And so I did that. I emailed photographers, and Ray was one of them, and just to buy him coffee and get to know him. And throughout all of this, we decided, like, when I met with Ray, we're like, man, we should get together and just like show work. Like, that would be really cool. And it took us about a year to get that going, but we did the first one in 2016. And that was at Foster Co-working on Ponce. We've been through 9 places, so we've been...
Yeah, most of the places that we have hosted ATL Photonight at, I mean, I wouldn't say most of them, but many of them are no longer around. Foster, Citizen Supply.
Well, Switchyards, Facet.
Switchyard is still here, but
your
Facet
house.
Gallery.
We had it at your house.
My house is there, but
Your house
I don't
is
live
still
there anymore.
That was in the pandemic, so we could be outside. Yeah, so we held it pretty much monthly for several years. And the whole idea behind it was just, we call it investigating the creative process through conversation. So we are interested in like the art behind photography, what inspires you, your creative process. Man, the heat coming off this thing is real.
I'm good over here. I think
we'll start sweating.
You're getting the heat.
Yeah, that thing's hot. Anyway, sorry guys. So that's been like that was the inspiration for it. And we have been like blown away at the response over the years. I think one event we had like 150 over at Facet.
Liz Von Haney, if anybody knows.
Yeah, that was incredible.
At Facet Gallery, which was probably our favorite place out of
Facet was like
all of the locations we've done.
So
can I also interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I don't think you said it yet. Our amazing tagline, which sums up the whole point of this perfectly, investigating the creative process through conversation. Did you say that already?
I did.
Say it again because I wasn't paying attention.
You're going to trademark it now.
Proceed.
Yeah, proceed. Well, I won't bore you with all the details, but it's just been a fun ride. We've always been, about it being free, bring the whole family, just a conversation about art. That's really what we want to do. We don't care about shutter speeds and apertures and how many pixels you have. It's like your thought processes behind it. And we held it pretty regularly, monthly for a couple of years, and then the pandemic hit, and then we went to Instagram Live daily, just trying to keep sanity. And we had a project we put together that people, took part in, which is really cool.
That was really fun, actually.
That was really fun. Yeah,
because that was a weird time.
Oh my God.
For everybody, but especially independent contractors and freelancers and working artists in general.
It's still
that
weird.
Was a really weird time, and we're not fully over it. I don't think, honestly, but we made it through.
We did. We've had a few events since 2020. I looked at the archives. We've had over 30 events. Like I said, this is our 9th location in 9 years. 24 was the only year we didn't have an event. But now we're back, and so we're going to have them quarterly. Terminus so gracefully offered this spot to us for free. So thank you, Terminus, for allowing us to be here. But yeah, that brings us to where we are, ATL Photonight version 2.0.
We're relaunching.
We are.
And let me just say real quick, I want to thank some folks. First of all, Julian, Alexander, and Jen Finch.
Yes.
Here. We probably wouldn't be doing this if they hadn't stepped in and said, hey guys, get your shit together. What the fuck are you doing? We need to get back on this.
Now, I'll tell you the story real quick. Julian approached me at a Falcons game and said, if we do the work, will you just show up and talk? And I was like, done. Because like we
that was always our biggest
it's like the event stuff, like all the, chairs and all the stupid things, and it's not stupid, you know what I mean? So these guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so
They
much.
built the website, all the things. Ray and I just show up and talk. And so, here we are.
2.0.
Yeah. I do want to thank our sponsors. So, KEH, who has been with us through almost this whole thing.
Who's bought something from KEH ever?
Everybody, right?
That's good. If you don't know and you're here, KEH is the world's largest reseller of used gear on the planet. The planet. The universe, actually. I've bought many things from there, but like they can back it up because
what does KEH
literally
stand
have
for?
everything. I don't care. They have everything. It's amazing.
They do. And so also we want to thank Terminus and APA. Someone's from APA here. Brittany, you here? Hello.
Thank you, APA folks, Sean and
Thank you guys so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Yep, they provided our audio equipment tonight, and we are very, very grateful. Otherwise, we'd be yelling at everyone. Uh-oh. Oh, and Bryce France is here recording video. May or may not be available. I'm just kidding. We will. I'm not. No shade on Bryce. It's just us getting our shit together to post it and all that stuff. So.
Am I okay? Did I fuck up my mic?
Speak of the devil.
So what we're trying to do, one thing we're trying to do is do a better job of producing the content around the talks, which means recording them so that we can build a library of these talks, both on audio and video, to preserve them, to have them. And so this is what we're doing this time with the relaunch. Bryce stepping in to handle all of that, which is going to be incredible. So what else? What is that? That's me.
That's it. Oh, the last thing I did want to say is Ray was my first, did I say this? You were my first guest, or our first guest at Photo Night.
Yeah.
At whatever it's called, Foster.
Foster.
And so it's appropriate to have Ray back, relaunch at 2.0, blah, blah, blah. You know, here you are. So welcome back, Ray. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's weird to be not interviewing someone, but to be, not that I don't like to talk about myself, I do, but it is weird. I'm kidding, actually, I really don't like this. But thank you all. I just want to, before we actually start, I want to pose a question to everyone here. If you are here tonight and you're a working photographer or a working artist, can you like stand up? Just physically stand your body up. Do that for me, please, everybody. Brett, you're an editor. That counts. Come on. Okay, I'm just going to say you all deserve a huge round of applause. Can we just applaud for each other? That's an unbelievable ratio. Percentage of people here. You can sit down. Thank you so much for what you do, for not giving up. I know if you're like me, there's a lot of times where you're like, why the fuck am I doing this? Why am I doing this? It's really hard. No one responds to you. You can't get paid. It's hard to get paid. But I am so inspired by all of you, especially my friends that are here, David and Kendrick, Andrew. That's what keeps me going, because I look around and I see the amazing work that you all are doing. And I'm like, yeah, we're all going through the same shit, and I'm really, really, really proud of all of you, my friends especially, because it's really not easy. And, now we're in the age of AI and just more and more an inundation of all kinds of media, streaming from these computers we carry around in our pockets all the time. And a lot of it is a lot of negative energy that says you're not doing enough and you're not good enough, you're not working hard enough. So I just want to encourage you to come to things like this. It doesn't have to be an hour event, but to remove yourself from that constant flow of social media, like fake lifestyle stuff, and come here and talk with people face to face that understand you, that know what you're going through. I've always said this is kind of like doing this is like my therapy, coming and just talking about it. It's really, really helpful. So just wanted to give you all some shine, and you're all amazing. Okay.
All right, here we are. Well, tell us how, so you're here to talk about Palmetto Portraits.
Yeah, we could.
Sure. If you want to.
I brought some pictures.
If you can, just tell us how this came to be. Like, I remember when you started doing this, and I felt like your biggest cheerleader, because I know how hard it is to start, a project and see it through. I have too many ideas and things that I want to do, and I just know how hard projects are to do.
Yeah.
Especially with a family, and you have a full-time job now, and all these things. So just bring us up to speed, on how this came into be.
So this project is called the Palmetto Portrait Project, and in 2022, February of 2022, I moved from Atlanta to this little town called Palmetto, which is, many of you probably don't know where it is. It's 30 miles south of here, past the airport. It's near a town called Chattahoochee Hills. It's before Noonan. It's straight down Lee Street or 29, Roosevelt Highway. You just go straight down there. And a couple of things. It was COVID, kind of the later end of COVID. And my family and I, my wife who's here, who is the most beautiful person here, and she's like my best editor and cheerleader, and yeah, thank you for supporting me. We decided to move. I think we both felt a little suffocated by living in Atlanta. We had moved to Atlanta from New York City in 2011, and had lived there 10 years, worked, loved it. All of our friends were there, but we kind of fell in love with this little town, more importantly, this house, that it kind of, in a time where we just felt suffocated by COVID, all of the insecurities and doubt that was surrounding every part of our lives, it kind of felt like the right thing to do, to like change things up and go somewhere to a place that offered us this sort of incubation time to like unravel that sort of trauma and things that we were just, it wasn't good. And so we moved here to this place that we didn't know anyone there. And, but, we just said, hey, let's just try this. And I think it could be really good for us. And the space, our kids have the space and our dogs. And it's like, at the same time, I had been going through a pretty severe, my most severe case of like creative block. I'm someone that David and Kendrick know that ever since, college, I had multiple projects going on, long-term projects. I'd do one, do another, just ongoing. And I got to the point where I was just like hitting a wall. And I think it obviously was tied to COVID as well, but COVID also gave me some relief from that. I could step back and be like, I'm just not gonna do anything. I'm gonna take a step back. I'm just gonna like say no for a while. So we moved to Palmetto. And I just don't shoot pictures for quite a while. Like I'm not really taking any assignments. I'm not shooting on my own, which is, I don't recommend. But yeah, just kind of like walked away to a degree, which I, obviously was also plagued with guilt by, like for like my inner voice is saying, you should be doing more, you should be working harder, you should be being more productive. These are the things that independent artists tell ourselves. And, so I didn't do anything, I didn't have any projects going on. I'm in this town and I start to meet people and get to know our neighbors. And this phrase that I had come up in the journalism industry hearing, that some of the best stories are in your own backyard. You don't have to go to Afghanistan. You don't have to go to wherever it is, South America. You don't have to go to these exotic places to find amazing stories. And that really hit hard. I don't know, it's resonating with me. And so I decided to sort of like test that theory, and this is like a town where I live. I've never done anything like this. I've never done a project in the place where I live.
How many folks live in Palmetto?
5,000 people.
And when's the last time you lived in a town that small?
Never. In my life, ever. Yeah, never. Okay. I was born in Wichita, Kansas, and then I grew up in North Carolina, but they were all kind of smallish, whatever, towns. So I just said, I think I'm ready to start something. And I was very cautious about starting a new project because I'm at the point in my life and career now where I understand the time and energy it takes to, like, if you commit to something, you start it. Like, I don't want to do something halfway. I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to maintain my attention to it, the energy that I want to dedicate to something, and to be able to pull it off. So I started taking pictures, and of course it wasn't good enough to just take my digital camera out and start walking around taking pictures. I decided to use my large format 4x5 film camera, which is perfect because like this is the complete other side from anything I would be hired to do. It was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed to force myself to be removed from the years and years of work and grinding and hustling and invoicing and emailing and begging for work, just trying so hard. In a case like this, and many of you know with personal projects, like it can be the most liberating, freeing, just most incredible experience if you will just allow it. There's no editor, there's no money, there's no one who's telling you to go do this, to go shoot this. You're in complete control. And if no one ever sees it, maybe that's fine and maybe that's what you needed. But in this case, I said, I want to start photographing this place and this people that I'm learning and getting to know and hearing their stories. And I didn't really have an end goal past that.
Just take pictures, just go around.
Just start. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I usually start a project, is if I have an idea and I sit on it for a couple of weeks and I start doing some research. A lot of times I'll just start it. Like, I don't know, I don't have anyone to pitch it to in mind. I don't know what it's going to be.
Well, that's the best, when you just start. Like, don't think about it, don't research it, just start, yeah.
So this is the town. I'm going to get to the picture. I know this is probably quite boring at this point for you guys. So I started, well, I'm going to show you the pictures and then I'll get more into like how we actually pulled this off and the idea behind it. But yeah, I started photographing the people. I set up a studio and I said, please come have your picture taken.
And this was at like a little business downtown, right?
Yeah,
Like a
Palmetto
storefront?
is completely vacant. There's 2 or 3 operating like businesses. One is like a lawnmower repair. There's like a hardware store and some gas stations. And there's an awesome little 2-block, 1 stoplight, like original bank building and all these retail storefronts. Every single one is vacant. So I found out who owned them. I became friends with them, pitched them an idea, and they said, my idea was like, give me one of these spaces for a month. This is what I want to do. And, you know, they were like, sure. So it was amazing.
There we go.
So I set up a little studio.
Wait, when did you start that? Was that like
This was
22 or?
the idea was like, I started in 2024,
Oh,
or actually late 2023. We photographed in May of 24.
this is all, okay, got it.
So real quick, I'll go through the pictures. And by the way, we didn't say this, but like, this is not an artist talk. This is meant to be a conversation. So there's no like waiting to the end to ask. If you have a question, please like ask. I'm not going to
Shout
tell you
out.
my exposure because that's boring. But so this is Betty Slaughter. She was born and raised in Palmetto, and she would have walked on the sidewalks of this town as a little girl in front of the space where we photographed her. That's what makes this project so incredible to me. So many people I photographed, born and raised here, just amazing lives. So she was probably born in probably early 40s.
Wow.
So the stories they have are incredible. My goal was to try to photograph as many people as possible.
Well, how did you get the word out?
It was really hard. In a place like that, like you think, oh, it's a small town, right? Yes, but there's no gathering point. There's no newspaper. They don't have an Instagram. You know, like you can go into the city hall and talk to somebody. There's a monthly city council meeting, which I went to many, many times. But mainly it was through the churches. So I started reaching out to all the churches, just sending this, like, here's the idea. This is what we're doing. This is the research. This is we want nothing. Just come and share your story and, be a part of this. Be a part of telling your story. Really trying to emphasize to the people who live there that I live here too. I'm invested. I'm your neighbor. And let me, this is what I have to offer. This is what I can do. Look at my pictures. I can do this. I can tell stories. I can photograph people. Like, be a partner with me in this project. Be a part of telling your story. And so I think that kind of mentality really helps. Like, when you're approaching someone to photograph them, if you can really approach them as a partner, as a collaborator in this thing you're doing, even if it's for a portrait where you have a few minutes to do, like, give them some control, give them, like, let go of your artist ego a little bit and like make them a collaborator. And I really tried to do that.
Did you direct them much?
No, absolutely not.
Your camera's on a tripod.
Yeah, so I'm shooting on a large format 4x5 camera. I shot Ilford sheet film, a really old camera, the only large format camera that I have, on a tripod with natural light, which is not a great idea to do. But I just did my best to pull it off, and it was really tricky with some really slow shutter speeds sometimes.
Oh, I bet.
The maximum aperture on that lens is what, David? I think it's a 4.5, maybe 5.6. But this is Uli, Bobe, and Liz, my friends who live in Palmetto. Uli's a photographer, and Liz is a musician. these are the kinds of people that are leaving Atlanta for places that are more affordable, where they can have space and find community. Yes, I saw a hand over here, sir.
Yes, sir.
So you're talking about, you don't have an idea, and then all of a sudden you have an idea. How does that, you're talking through how,
Yeah.
it's very specific, it goes from this like white elephant thing.
Yeah, sure. So the idea first was like, yeah, not an idea. I'm in this place. I can do this now. Let me just start taking pictures. And then I kind of fell back on, you may be able to tell by, the style of these pictures, but one of my biggest influences is Richard Avedon and his style of portraiture. Was one of the first books I picked up when I was discovered photography. So portraiture, from a storytelling standpoint, has always been kind of my go-to. It just makes more sense to me sometimes, a lot of times, than the sort of traditional documentary where a lot of time boots on the ground, wandering around, finding the narrative. Because the community and the people were so important to this place, it just kind of started to make sense that instead of, yes, the place is important, for instance, like the buildings and the streetscapes for what they are, but it's really the faces and what you can see when you strip away everything and you just have the person's face in front of you with natural light on the highest resolution film that I can use in incredible detail. Like that to me is, one portrait is great, but then as we start to build these over hundreds of portraits of people, the mosaic that's formed of this sort of cross-section of this place that's undergoing this massive transformation seemed to make the most sense. And by the way, Andrew, none of this was like this clear, definitive path where I knew it was going to be a home run, but it made sense to me. And again, I didn't have to ask permission. I didn't have to ask it. I didn't have to sell it to anybody. It's just me. So, and I knew that I could do this well. I could do it efficiently. I knew that there were spaces. I saw these retail spaces, these empty spaces all the time with these big windows. I knew that would work if I could just get my way in. And so I went with that.
So when you were taking these portraits, like a sheet film, right? I've never used a large format. Were you taking several pictures with these folks? Is it like?
Yeah, so it's expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive. And I was able to get, a few private donations just from citizens of the town that I did a really small, just fundraising to get some money to fund the project. And that paid for the film and the processing, basically. And so, so I bought as much film as I could. And then I did at most 3 to 4 sheets per person. Mm-hmm. And so that means being extremely exacting on every frame. If you lose a frame, that really sucks if you're only shooting 3.
And you may have mentioned me before, but did you direct them, or was it just like, hey, stand here?
No directing. I said, come as you are. There's just a clean background. I set up a canvas backdrop.
Okay.
And I said, this is our space. If you want to stand with your family, your grandson, your whatever, if you want to bring an item with you, do that. The only direction was to look in the camera.
Yeah.
That was it. The question here, yes.
Yes, I wanted to do a simple project. What did you give back to them? What was your turnaround?
We'll get to that later. We did a really cool exhibition in the town. I made prints for everybody. A lot of the people I photographed were older. And so sending, emailing a download link to the file is not really a feasible option. So I was able to save enough money in the budget to make prints for everybody. And I went to the senior center this week actually and delivered prints to the seniors there. And so, this project was a lesson in transparency and responsiveness and being a good citizen. I can't just pop into a town in Tennessee and shoot for a week and then leave and never see them again. I see these people every day. And that really impressed upon me a different level of, just taking it a little bit more seriously than I would have. But yeah, that's what we did.
You know, you talked about this being a personal project and how freeing that is. And of all the talks we've done, so many folks like talk about how important personal projects are to like their vision, and it gets them work in the end, even though that's not like the main goal. And, that's where like that's where the juice is like doing, personal projects like this.
I think for me, it's survival. Like if I want to survive as a working photographer, which is a fucking grind, like I've got to be doing stuff like this,
Yeah.
that again is removed from the client aspect of what I do and pleasing someone. For me, like I would not survive in this industry if I wasn't doing personal projects.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't ever taken a leap to do one, like you have no excuse. Like everyone's got a digital camera, just do it. Like, do not worry about what it's going to be in the end. Start taking pictures of the tree in your yard. Like it doesn't matter. What matters is what the vision that comes out through your camera,
How many folks did you photograph?
We photographed over 120 people
In a month?
in a month, every single weekend. We were set up. This is, by the way, this is Mr. Thomas Peak. He's 95 this year. The Peak family is one of the oldest families in Palmetto. Mr. Peak grew up in what is now Chattahoochee Hills on a farm. It used to be all Palmetto, but he grew up on a farm there, and they would come into Palmetto as like, to get stuff from the dry goods store, and they would make a trip by horse and wagon. And it would be like their day. They would come in, buy stuff, whatever they couldn't make or grow, and then they would go back out. And now he works 2 days a week at the paper service hardware store. And I would carry flyers with me. I had printed flyers that I would put like all over the place, the laundromat and like the post office and like the hardware store. And then I would just, if I met someone at the hardware store, I would just tell them about it, and I would say, just please, just come and see me. I want to hear more. I just want to talk to you and hear more about your story. And the thing about a small town like this, especially with people that were born and raised there, is they are like, they just don't have the same defense mechanisms that like someone like I have, having lived in New York City and lived in Atlanta and places like that. Like they're like, yeah, you want to hear my story? Okay, I'll tell you. And like, it's just like, let's just talk. And so it was like, it was hard to reach the people, but to get them to come, I mean, we had like lines like down the sidewalk.
Waiting to get their picture.
Waiting to get their picture taken, which can be kind of a wait with large format photography. But yeah, this is one of my favorite pictures.
You talked a little bit about some of the lessons you've learned, but like, what are some of the biggest things you've gotten out of this? Like as an artist, as a resident, as a man, like whatever, like what?
Yeah, I think I'm still learning.
You posted a long post yesterday on
Yeah, that was
Instagram.
deep.
Yeah, it was really good.
Sometimes I've always been into writing, and it's just, again, like very therapeutic to me. And sometimes it's easier for me to write the things that are inside of me than say them. But I think I'm still learning. I mean, my approach to what I do as a photographer is from a humanist perspective. I mean, I get paid for what I do, but what I really care about is meeting people and learning more about how to be a better person through how they live, through getting to know them, through learning what they've been through. So, in a way, it's a selfish act for me. I'm doing these things because I want to make myself a better person, but I try to reciprocate that equally by being a good neighbor, a good citizen, by being a human in a human person, like someone that is, my actions are going to be from a place of what am I doing? How is this going to help someone else? Mm-hmm. So even if it's in a storytelling way, like in this regard, there's always a bit of a push and pull, like aesthetically, creatively. I just want to make beautiful pictures sometimes, but there's a way to they're not mutually exclusive. With this project, I can make really, really beautiful portraits. But at the same time, I'm giving this town and these people, I'm acting as a medium. I'm saying, just come and tell your story through me. Let me do this. Let me take your picture and record your oral history and preserve that. And for me, that's such a gift, and I feel so honored that everyone that is a part of this project so far trusted me with that. I do not take that lightly. I do not take what I do lightly at all. It's a very, I'm really, I try to be really, again, from this humanist perspective of doing no harm, of really treating people with respect no matter who they are. So I think that I'm always learning is the answer.
Did you get any resistance? Was anybody like, who is this new guy from New York City down here trying to take pictures, or I don't know?
No, because I live there.
Okay.
Because I live there and I'm a neighbor and I'm going to city council meetings. They're like, yeah, he cares. He lives here. Who's gonna come and live in Palmetto? Yeah, wants to live here. And then they were so, some people just didn't want to have their picture taken. That's fine. But everyone who did was so just flattered that someone would take the time to do this, to set up this complicated, expensive camera and go to all this trouble to photograph them. No one has ever done that before, ever.
Well, we
got a question for Andrew.
Yeah, we got some questions. We got a lot of pictures going.
And camera, right? So if you have all our, if your older subjects would really appreciate, 4x5. Your younger subjects would also appreciate something they haven't seen.
Oh yeah.
Find that as just is that.
Yeah, for sure. There's Uli. Hey, Uli. You're going to get a shout out here in a minute. So the camera, if you're walking around, let's say you're shooting a wedding. Yeah, someone's going to come up to you and be like, hey, what kind of camera are you using? What's that lens? If you're walking around the town with a 4x5 camera on a tripod, and then you put it down, you put a hood over your head, a black cape, and you're looking through this thing, and they're gonna be like, what is, then they're really intrigued. So yeah, having this set up in a studio like this it is a great disarming mechanism because they're just sort of fascinated. And so a lot of times what I would do, this is a little, if there's any advice I can give, this is maybe one little trick. Excuse me, in a setting like this, in the studio, what I'm trying to do is make a really honest portrait. These are strange. Some of these people I knew, maybe, acquaintances, but many I'd never met before. They heard about it, they came in, so they're essentially strangers, right? Photographing a stranger is difficult because we all have these walls that we erect for protection when it's a very vulnerable situation, to have your picture taken in this way. So the camera, they will focus on that. They're looking at all these things I'm doing. I'm making all these adjustments, and then I put the thing over my head, and I disappear. And I really take my time and let them look at, excuse me, I need some water here. If I don't do this, I'm gonna choke. Stall for me.
I got some jokes. Ready? What if? I'll spare you the
Andrew?
jokes.
So the camera is complicated and crazy, and they kind of fixate on that and they let their guard down. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, you've got a lot of pictures I want to get through
Some
here.
good ones.
Yeah, you've got so many. Oh, is that
This
Santa
guy's a
Claus?
professional Santa Claus, for real, in real life.
Oh, you went past him.
Let me go. Professional Santa Claus.
Wow. And by the way, these are a little bit sepia from the projector. These are true.
Yeah, we
black
did
and
try
white.
they are true black and white. I did not sepia tone the photographs, rest assured.
I'm curious how,
Sure.
when you're shooting this way and then you're shooting digital, say a week later on a different project, how does it feel different Because you're looking at the person from the viewpoint, like they could see you, they could see your face, and they're taking maybe 100 photos instead of 3 photos. How does it feel to go back and forth? Is it too
Yeah.
much visually?
It's a great question. I have this book called The Tao of Photography, and it's about finding Zen through the practice of photography, and it's about, you know, the practice of Taoism and slowing down. And I've always, like my entire career, I've like, I gotta slow. Like digital just forces you to like, you know, take lots of pictures. It doesn't force you, but you can, so you do. And I've always tried to resist that. So this kind of photography, film photography in general, forces me and everyone to slow down, which is, in my opinion, a great practice to then try to work into your digital photography, to be more intentional about every frame you take and not just lay on the fucking motor drive or whatever it is. Like to try to be more intentional about every photograph you take and ask yourself before, why am I taking this? What is it saying? What am I trying to communicate by taking this picture? You know, should I, you know, or not, or take it from a different angle or whatever it is. So it's not difficult to switch back and forth. I find a lot of benefits from it. I find that those benefits of slowing down, being forced to slow down, will factor into shooting digitally in a really great way.
I did want to ask you if you could start over. Would you do anything differently?
Like on life, would I choose a different job, or on the project?
On the project. By the way, it's such a great name, Palmetto Portraits. Like that's like perfect.
Yeah, I think no. I have no regrets. Absolutely not. Only amazing things have come from this for me personally. I'm proud of the work. This is just the first phase. You know, I wouldn't change a single thing.
Yeah. And I had another question of like, you know, is this ongoing? What's the next step? I know we'll get to like the installation and all those things, but you know, it feels like this is just the beginning.
Yeah. Yes. So we did the first month of photography, and then in the fall, which you'll see in a minute, this big installation project in the town, and I want to do more. So I've been applying to grants and other projects, and
That's a difficult process.
it's annoying, and but you know, once you like take the time to sort of write it up, you can then just sort of modify it for all of them and just, you know, send them out. So I'm doing that, which I've never done before. I've always just sort of self-done everything. So I'm trying that, and I think, there will definitely be more. You know, if we have to do just more like grassroots fundraising to make it happen, then that's totally a possibility too. I think, you know, the town is like super behind it. They love it. They're begging to do more. Like I meet people all the time. They're like, when are you gonna open the studio again? Because I couldn't make the first one. You know? They want to have their picture taken. So this is one of my favorite. This is David Brill. This guy used to photograph for National Geographic, and has found his way living down nearby Palmetto, and comes to Palmetto like every weekend to eat tacos, and just an incredible look. And I met him, and then I went to his house, and I talked with him,
And this is all through the project that you
just through the project, you know, just saw him. It was like, actually a friend who was helping volunteer saw him and was like, hey, come over to the studio when you're done eating that taco. And so we just chatted for like an hour or two. But, you know, and then I did things like this. I did start to get a little experimental because I just really can't help myself. And so I did something like this where, you know, this is not a new technique. This has been done many, many times by lots of people, including Richard Avedon, where you can photograph even a panorama, like a much longer horizontal than this, just by, you take a picture, you just pan the camera, take another one, and then afterwards you just overlay the photographs, the prints or the scans. These are some of the firefighters in Palmetto. And then I started to shoot, accidentally discovered, I've done many projects. I'm working on one currently that's a multiple exposure thing. And I love that process, but on film it's a very different experience. And kind of like so going into the project, I knew that this would happen, because if you've ever shot 4x5 film in the studio or on your own without an assistant reloading for you and handing you fresh film holders, it's really, really easy to mix up.
This was accidental.
At first it was.
Oh, okay.
At first it was. I kind of let it happen in a way. Like I knew it was going to happen, and then I knew I'd messed up, but I kept shooting because I knew my experience doing multiple exposure stuff that like you get these alignments that are just too good to be true, and I just really love what it says. You can read a lot. It's just another layer, both figuratively and literally, in the photographs. And I started shooting with more landscapes of the town. This is one of the churches that I reached out to and organized to get people to come into. And I shot a lot of color on expired film, just of the place. And I think so this type of stuff was not a part of the original exhibition, but will factor into the larger project as I continue to work on this for probably years to come.
And this was the same camera?
Same camera, and I'm just
Tripod.
lugging around. My wife Jen went out our first night, went out at sunset, and it was just a magical. I mean, the light in the country, rural places like where I live,
It's totally different.
It's just another level,
Yeah.
and you get those. I mean, as photographers, we are all very sensitive to light changes, and we see it when other people don't. But it hits differently out there, and like on this is actually slide film, so like expired E6
No room
4x5
for
film,
error.
which is extremely. I definitely fucked up many exposures here because the light was changing really fast. But yeah, I mean, I love that. Like, I love the imperfect organicness of these pictures. They're not perfect, and they're messy. And if you've never looked through a 4x5 camera, when you look at the back, it's upside down and it's backwards. So like, it's really hard. It's really difficult to compose the way you normally would in a camera. And so, yeah, things are going to be in your frame you didn't see. There's going to be vignetting, and you didn't see that, whatever. So you didn't see that sign. But I really love the happenstance of that.
I did want to ask you, like, what were the biggest problems or hurdles? I know that funding might have been an issue, but like, at some point, were you like, in your mind, be like, what the hell am I doing? Is this, like, we all run into that. Just in general,
Yeah.
what are the biggest hurdles?
I think I always say yes to a project before I'm confident that I can pull it off. Like if I waited until I was like, okay, you know what? I'm really ready to do this, and I'm gonna fucking nail it. I'm really gonna I'm so prepared. I would never do anything.
Yeah.
I would have never had kids. I would have never I never would have started ATL Photonight with you.
Yeah.
So I wasn't completely prepared, and I was definitely overwhelmed many times. Like, these people are, once you put it out there, these people are looking at you, they're putting their trust in you and their time, and they're putting their, they are handing over this piece of them, their story, their image, to you, with the understanding, the agreement that you are going to do that justice, that you are going to make them proud. This is how I choose to function. Not everyone does. But so, yeah, it is very overwhelming. And yeah, on the days when Uli was there, luckily, and we had a line down the sidewalk, and I'm fucking up film, and I'm trying to get people in, and we're trying to record their, oral histories at the same time.
Oh, there's audio too?
Yeah, again, a future part of the project that we haven't been able to work in yet. But yeah, it was really overwhelming. But I love every minute of it. I fucking love the pressure. I love the deadline. I love being under pressure. That's the only way that I can get anything done, honestly. So real quick, this is one of the church. There may be more than one church that's kind of not abandoned, but is no longer, it's a building. There's no church happening. I got access to it and went inside and took some pictures that I really love. That again, just tell more about the place. This is a town, 5,000 people, 150 years old, just a year ago November, elected their first woman and first person of color to be mayor in the seat of mayor ever in the town's history.
Wow.
This is a town that has traditionally been at least 50% black for as long as the town has been there, divided by the railroad tracks, east and west, the black side and then the other side. And, it's been a long time coming, and there's a real shift in this town where people get a sense of this renewed pride and hope again. Like, you know, like we've kind of maybe like we've crested the hill, and we've got someone now who's younger who is listening to the changes we want in the town. With that cultural evolution comes a lot of, there's vacant storefronts. There's a lot of cleaning up from the past decades of mismanagement in the town and just figuring all that out. And so empty buildings are sort of part of that story. So this is the fun part. Oh shit, let me, hold on.
There you go. Is that it? Yeah. Is there sound?
Oh, there's no sound. It's not. Okay, so the fun part, we do all these pictures, and the whole time I'm like, I'm a serious photographer, guys. We're gonna do an exhibition in a room with white walls, framed pictures. How exciting is that, right? And then I was like, it's not right for this project. It's not right for this place. It's not right for this community. Imagine you spend all this time photographing this community, and then you take the pictures and you put them in this room that has very limited hours. You can only come, and you got to go in and from 11 to 1 on a whatever, and you can walk through and you get to stare at these pictures on the wall. I really don't know where this idea came from. I think it was conversations with my wife. I think it was, this is a process called wheat pasting. It's where you do big murals on paper, on exterior walls. It's something that I was familiar with, but had never done. I just started to think about, okay, if this isn't going to work in a room like a traditional art gallery setting, exhibition, what is the other side of that? So that is to take it out of the room and to put it into the place outside where it was made. And so that's what we did. The next series of beautiful pictures are by my friend Andrew Hetherington, who is just this amazing Irishman. He's
with great stories.
a great friend. He's like, everybody needs a friend like Andrew. I hope you guys find someone. Hope you find your Andrew, because I found mine. He's a believer in me. He's a supporter. And I have many people like that in my life. And I wouldn't be here doing this without people like that. So thank you, Andrew. He took these pictures too. He's an incredible photographer, Andrew Hetherington. So I said, let's do these murals. How do we pull it off? One of my early ideas was with Uli. I said, hey, Uli, I think I'm going to do these. I want to do this thing. Have you ever done it? And he's like, maybe. And I've kind of done something similar. And so it was a lot of research. And then I started to do tests of, I did one like on my shed in my backyard, like see if I can pull this off. The process is you take the picture, the file. I did scans of these files. Some of the scans I was doing were like 2 gigabytes per scan. It was stupid. I definitely went overboard. But you scan the file, and then through a process of some code that someone wrote, you can run it through a program after you've input all of the data that you want, like the size of the end mural. You're breaking it up into panels. So this mural here that I'm about to show, this is us doing it, I'll just click through, is like probably 20 feet off the ground, so it's very large. We've got to do a lot of math to figure out, okay, how many panels of 24 by 36 blueprint paper? It's like thin, it's almost like newsprint, you want a really thin paper. You got to divide that into sections and each panel, so it's like.
And you've never done this before?
Never done it before. It was a lot of research, and this is a point of feeling overwhelmed. Like, okay, now I've committed and I'm putting this out there. I'm going to do this. I got to pull this off.
You didn't have enough moving parts already, so you needed more.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a good idea. I had amazing support from people like Uli and Andrew, and did the math, got these things printed at this blueprint printer, like this place in Tyrone, Georgia. We chose 14 murals to do in the end, and I was doing these test prints at this printer, and I go to the guy one time, and I was like, man, this is kind of dark. do you guys have, because you have a profile that you can send me, and then I want to make sure that we're synced up and everything's correct as far as the gamma and everything. And he's like, we print blueprints for building houses. Like, no, we do not have a profile. I don't know what you're talking about. Send me your files and I'll print them, but or do that or go away. And so I just kind of like, what I had to do was like overcompensate in the files that I delivered to them. They were like, if you saw the file, you'd be like, that's kind of bright and washed out. But I had adjusted so much for how I knew that they would shift in the printing. And they were completely, like some of them were completely off. Like one panel here would be a little darker than the next one. But what's happening is we're taking these panels and we're finding these exterior walls. Again, we had to get like permission from all the landowners in the city for each location, plan it out, the size, all this stuff. We had to build scaffolding. This is the mayor, Mayor Teresa Thomas Smith, another just amazing supporter of artists in the town. If you want to do art, come to Palmetto. They will say yes. Give them an idea. But what we're doing is just you basically use wallpaper adhesive, it's like Elmer's glue kind of, and we bought it in big 3-pound buckets. You can also mix it yourself, which I tried. It was terrible, really gooby, like just it didn't work well. But we really got our process down, and we did 14 at like 9 locations. Some of them had like sort of 3 big ones together. And Uli and me and Andrew and Darren, who's here, I just assembled like 6 or so volunteers. I said, hey guys, we got to do this on this Sunday. We're going to get them all done in one day. And we divided it and conquered. So I sort of ran them through one and then set them loose. And, it's measuring, leveling, making sure things are square. And then you just do it. And the good part is, if you mess up a little bit, like this is a very organic process on these walls that are already kind of crumbling and the paint is weird. And all of that seeps through the photograph and the paper, adding this additional layer of texture. Again, from, incorporating the place where the pictures were made into the photographs themselves physically, even though these are just 2-dimensional pictures. But we had this, we put them up, and then that following, I don't know what day it was, we had an opening. And we had been obviously promoting this in the town. We had Instagram and like Facebook or whatever. And we said, join us at the Train Depot Museum at this time. We're going to do a walking tour and just come. And the whole fucking town.
It was incredible.
It was, a lot of you were there. I know, so thank you if you came.
It's like hundreds of people.
It was amazing. I was completely overwhelmed. And again, like, this is not something I usually do. And this is, years of solitude working the freelance life where you can't even get a response from people. Like, this is why you do a personal project. This is it right fucking here. I'm telling you, take a chance, do something like this. People came out and they were ecstatic to see themselves, to see their neighbors, to see someone they know. It was so moving. And it was like forever life-changing for me. Most of them are already gone. So these went up October 17th. Actually, I would say like 3 are probably still in really good shape, including the large one is in pretty great shape. But the it's water soluble. They just sort of deteriorate over time, and we're going to very soon go through and just pressure wash them off. So I would say they all lasted until January in pretty good shape. It depends on the wall surface. It depends on how much cover it has from the weather, just like things like that. But it's fairly cheap to pull off. This is like just showing you like the town. This is the downtown. That's my studio right there. And this is how the idea started. Just a really quick recap on how it started. You get the idea. I'm going to do portraits. I need a window and an indoor space. Find the owner, ask for permission. They say yes. Figure out a timetable. Go to the city council meetings. Tell everyone. Brag a little bit, enough about yourself to convince them that you're not just, bullshitting. That you can actually like pull it off and they're worthy of listening. Like their time is worth it, you know, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, you show your credentials, show some good works, show or speak about, prove that you've done the research enough to get their buy-in, to get them on board. You need the community on board, obviously, for something like this. So city council meetings.
Yeah, you get city council on board. like,
Talking, yeah. And they were all about it because they were like, wait, you don't want anything from us? Like, you don't want money? Yeah, like, no, I just want your support. You know, I just want you to tell people and be behind this. And that worked for me. This is the studio just from the inside. Occasionally I had some lights set up. I never really used them. They would be, obviously I was shooting, they would be constant lights. I was not shooting flash. You can see my little camera there. Canvas backdrop, 2 V-flats to bounce as much light as I could. The window's behind me. So, yeah, like some of the exposures were like literally like a 15th of a second. And my camera's on a tripod, that's great, but the people, you know, the subject, it's, yeah, you know, it's just really, and again, you're upside down and you're backwards and you're focusing with a loop on the ground glass and at the biggest aperture that you have. I never shot at anything but the largest aperture. So the depth of field is, you know, is very small on big film like that, on a big camera, that type of lens. And yeah, this is me photographing the mayor. You can see a little bit more about the project. And usually it was just me and I would go in. It was like really kind of this amazing fairy tale, or I would just walk from my house just across the street to the little town where my studio was, and I would just go in there and wait for someone to walk in. It was just so surreal, and I was just like, this is everything that I've ever dreamed of. Like, no way can I make a living doing this, but if I could just do this, I would just do this forever.
Are you planning on a book?
I think yes, for sure. This would be my 3rd book, and I think it's definitely ripe for that. There's so much potential. There's so much storytelling opportunity. You know, with this story in that format, selfishly, you know, doing a book of your photography is the pinnacle for most of us as working photographers. It is really, you know, the semblance of this is a book in hard form. It's preserved. It's I can touch it. I can feel it. And the care, it's just like a 2-year process, the care that goes into having the opportunity to dive that deep on something. Like, you've already shot it, now you get to spend this time dissecting and laying out and designing and writing around it and incorporating other elements. I would love to do that. You know, needless to say, book publishing is very hard. David knows. It's really hard. But I would love to. Be more behind the scenes. This is what I'm talking about. The reason, if you don't know, why you have to put this thing over your head is because on a large format camera, you know, in your camera, you look through the viewfinder and the image is hitting that piece of glass through a prism, and it's being bounced up from a mirror, and then it's on there for you to see, or an LCD screen and a full, what do they call it, like 4/3, whatever.
Mirrorless.
Mirrorless.
Yeah.
But on the large format camera, the image comes through the lens and goes straight back onto the ground glass. That's why it's upside down and backwards, because of the elements in the lens. It flips the image. There's no prism in there to correct it for your eye, so it's just on the ground glass. And it's very dim, and you can't see it unless you go to complete darkness.
Yep.
I like to nerd out about photography, if you can't tell, with all of my friends, including Andrew. And here's a cool sense of almost everyone that was photographed in this first round. Wow. Again, you get this beautiful mosaic of, the range of just age alone. Literally, a baby in utero, mom, baby inside, to the oldest living person in the town at 98 years old.
Wow.
That's the range of people that I photographed in this place. And I only photographed 120 of the people.
5,000, yeah.
And I only heard half of those stories. So this, you know, in a way, Palmetto is not special. It's just another southern town with a dark, twisted, scary, but also loving, beautiful history, resilience and strength, waiting to be told. There are towns, there are hundreds in Georgia alone. So, yeah, I hope that, one of my dreams is that through ATL Photonight, we can foster more of a community of photography in the South that are of just supporting each other and telling more stories in places like Palmetto. So that's that's the Palmetto Portrait Project.
Wow.
Thank you. I think so.
You have a question?
I was wondering if you could tell me about the curation process because you chose to work out original setting, how your is selecting images, deciding which ones behind sleeves and the ones that are next to you. So I just wanted to know a bit about how you take the work for models and if that changed their relationship going to any of those images or maybe next them a little bit of
Did you guys hear that, everybody?
Great question. It was about the editing process. Who's the best editor of the pictures you shoot? It's not yourself, okay? It's usually not you because of that very reason. You were there, you were taking the pictures, you knew everything. But I don't care about that because I took these pictures. This is my project. So I'm gonna do whatever I want. That was my operating procedure on this. But so what I did was, we knew that we had to choose. We just couldn't pull off. We had to choose a finite number, a dozen, 14, whatever it was, of murals to do. I printed every single image I shot from my printer at home, that you print invoices on, like not a printer, but just like very quick, 8.5 by 11, quickest possible picture, and I laid them all out on my floor. I have some pictures of it. It's a disaster, but that's the only way for me to wrap my head around everything at once, to see it all. Because what I'm looking for in choosing these is, okay, I have this big body of work. I can't show it all at one time. What's the next best thing? The next best thing is to try to formulate an accurate representation of those collectively. So I'm looking for diversity of types of images. So I wouldn't want to show, unless I was going in with that mission, I wouldn't want to show 14 images of the ones I shot at the senior center, of just the seniors who live there. Because again, there's young families, there's all kinds of different families and family structures, different kinds of people in Palmetto. So that's how I'm choosing. I want to make sure I get a couple people from the senior center, but then some younger people, a teenager. I'm just looking for a good, accurate mix. Obviously, aesthetically, I'm looking for images that are the most striking as well. So they have to kind of meet those two criteria. Thirdly, in this case, because this is a very non-traditional format, huge murals, I have to really be thinking about how are they going to display big. The good news is that the bigger you make things, it usually looks awesome, no matter what it is. Big images are they look awesome. So that was a factor as well. So yeah, it was just a lot of time starting with them all laid out on my floor, and I would get down to 50 and then throw those out and do another one, and just finally, lots of showing my wife and other folks and just saying, hey, what do you think about these? And yeah, it's a messy process. I would have loved to have a curator, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We got time for several questions.
Yeah. Shout them out. Thanks. That's the point of what we do at ATL Photonight.
So that was a question. She said, is this inspired?
What
No,
was
I'm
it?
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
She said they are inspired.
it's about to be embarrassed. Again, this is, usually I'm not up here talking about my own work. We are interviewing other artists. But Kevin and I both believe that we can find true inspiration from anyone that's showing any kind of work, even if it's extremely far removed from what you do. You're a sports photographer, whatever. We can all find inspiration in other types of creative work, in music and all kinds of other things. So yeah, I hope it was inspiring in some way. Maybe it triggered some idea for you. Yes, in the back. Yeah, again, the main, going into this, I thought by default, yes, it's going to be an exhibit in a gallery, framed portraits on the wall. But as I got closer and closer, it just didn't seem right for this project. And I really tried to be open about, tried to not over control it. Like that's the idea that I had going into it, but I was open to other ideas. And so it seemed, because this is about the community, I want to get the community involved, and I want to put these pictures in places where they're seen by the most people. Where is that? It's outside in a public place where you don't have to pay. There's no door to get in. You can see it driving by. You can see it big from a distance. So that was kind of how we got to the point of a mural. And there's no other way to do large photo murals like this other than the process of wheat pasting that I know of that's actually achievable and financially viable.
Anybody
Yeah,
else?
Sean.
Yeah.
Size, scale of each photo for the printout, such as what you see.
Was your question how?
How did you sell on your size?
How did you settle on the size?
Of the murals themselves or the pieces or both?
Of the murals themselves?
Yeah.
Where you get it?
Sure. Yeah, so step one was finding the walls. So once I had the idea, like, oh my God, I'm in this town where all these vacant places, I could probably just put these on all these empty walls, right? So then I'm seeing wall potential everywhere as I'm driving around. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, do I know who owns this property? Is it city owned, whatever? So find the wall, case in point, I'll just go back to one so you can sort of see.
And you just go by like the lowest common denominator of the size.
Kind of like, so this is the biggest one. This is an enormous wall. You could have done a much bigger picture here, but we just couldn't build the scaffolding high enough. It just wouldn't be, I mean, maybe there is such a thing as being too big, but find the wall and go out there and measure and visualize. I actually went around, and after I determined the walls, first it was a proposal to the city, like these are the walls I want. I photographed them as walls from usually a straight-on perspective, sometimes from different angles, and then I mocked it up in Photoshop. So I took my pictures, I put them in, I added some skew if I was a little off to skew the angle to make it sit right on the wall, dropped the opacity a little bit to let a little bit of that surface come through, and then just tried to see, like, is this gonna work here? How big should it be? And then I go out there and physically measure. And so we try to just visualize and tape it off. Is it gonna be 20 feet from the ground? Here's the top edge. And so we know the final portrait for this one is like maybe 16 feet tall by, I don't know the math, but the panels are 24 by 36. So then it's just, difficult math of how many panels is that? A1, B1, C1, D1, A2, B2, C2, D2. Printing them, sending them as PDFs, converting them to PDFs to, Tyrone printer guy, just print these. It had to be bulletproof when it got there.
The blueprint guy.
Yeah, the blueprint guy. It had to be just like click print on these PDFs because he was not, like they weren't going to work with me or fix something that, they weren't going to catch anything if I messed it up is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's how we got there.
Anyone else? Yep, right here.
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of really, really good stories. I think I'll tell a story that is both heartbreaking and also very special and inspirational to me. See if I can get through this without getting too emotional, but I photographed two sisters. They're both in their 90s. Conchita Beadle and her sister Vivian Terrell, and born and raised in Palmetto. And I'm going to go to a picture that is going to help tell the story. I photographed them. I went over to their house and actually photographed them on their porch. And, you know, I would photograph them, and then each person, I would sort of sit down and I would just hit record and just let them, I'd be like, just tell me what it was like. Tell me about your life. And yeah, they were born and raised in Palmetto, and this building that you see, it's called Bonitas by people who live in Palmetto because it most recently was a hair salon called Bonitas. But up on the second floor of that building that faces the main street, you can see the windows facing, used to be a doctor's office. And these two sisters were telling me about what it was like when they were kids. And they were like, yeah, there used to be a doctor's office up there, Dr. Bullock. And our mom, you know, worked there, and we would go help her sometimes, and we would, you know, help her ironing his clothes, and he actually delivered us. They were like, you know, we were, you know, these are two black women in their 90s. This doctor was not black; he was a white man, and this would have been, you know, whatever year in the 40s. Yeah, he delivered them, and he was like, yeah, he was a great man, and we loved him, and he loved us, and we used to go over there and help Mom with the laundry, and we would help ironing, and Conchita was like, "Do you remember we used to iron his robes?" And they called them patty robes, and then I just kind of like just let them keep talking, and I was like, "I don't know what that is. What's a patty robe?" And they were like, "You're like KKK, like his like KKK robes." And so I just, you know, obviously I was shocked, and I just said, you know, that's, you know, I didn't really know what to say, but I said, "Can you tell me a little more? How do you?" Because I heard many stories. There's been documented lynchings in that area, many, turn of the century, 1899, early 1900s. Many neighbors told me about remembering KKK marches through the streets. I mean, this is not unique to Palmetto, guys. Newnan, I mean, if you know anything about Newnan, places in the South, like in the 70s, KKK marches through the streets. We all know what that's about. But this was a new level for me. And I said, how do you, can you just tell me, like, because they were not, like, they said it very matter-of-factly. I said, how do you reconcile that? And she was just like, honey, that's just how we survived. That's just, it's what it is. And yeah, like this project has encouraged me to deal with a lot of what anyone who lives in the South has to deal with, this history that we share that is so close in our past, we forget how close it is sometimes, a handful of decades in the past. And so that story hit really, really hard, but it also just showed me the character and the strength in the community of these people. Like, if that didn't break them, if that didn't make them leave, you know, they countless times told me there's no other place we'd rather be, you know, surrounded by the people we grew up with, that, you know, that we were born with. It was like, I mean, I like to, I mean, I had two kids, and I try to share with them a lot about the things I learned through my work and through my travels, so that they can understand how other people live and have lived. And I think that this is a great example of that. I mean, hopefully it's a good thing that that's in the past, right? That's not happening anymore, that we're not having KKK marches down the street, but we have never fully come to terms, or we've never resolutely, just we've tried to move on as a nation, and as a Southern community, we've tried to move on without ever completely dealing with, you know, our tortured past, unfortunately. And it's like, in my work, it keeps coming up. And I'm glad the stories are still around, and I'm glad that I was able to record them because like no one else is recording it. I mean, there are some people, I shouldn't say that, there are people doing this work, but in Palmetto, like these women they're in their 90s. Like those stories are not recorded to my knowledge, and they'll just disappear. And so it's important that they are recorded, so that we remember and that we say that we haven't forgotten that these things happened not too long ago, and we still have a lot of work to do. So that's the story that hit hardest for me.
Prepared for getting that to point somebody when you first started?
Not at all. No, it's a good question. No, not at all. And I mean, yeah, like having grown up in the South, obviously, I'm aware of the history here. But yeah, when you hear personal, like really personal stories like that from people it's another level. Yeah, completely changed me. Yeah, and just really reinforced the fact, like I said, that we have a long way to go. We've made progress, but it's hard for me to be proud. It's really hard to be proud of who we are, knowing that, these things happened and we never fully, there has not been sufficient justice for those things.
And that's why this work's so important.
Yeah, it's personal, but it's also like, if I can have it's a very small, like, I think most of the stuff I do is inconsequential, is not going to make a difference. Maybe this won't either, but at least I've frozen time, I've preserved something. And I think that's the important part about the work we do. And another reason to do personal projects, because you can go deep like this. Like, no one besides these family knew of that story, right? Like, no editor is going to call me and say, hey, there's this amazing story. We want to do this documentary long form story about whatever. Like, but now I've heard it and I've recorded it, and it's there. And the next phase of this project is doing more on the oral history end and figuring out a way to preserve that long term and to do more of that and to combine it with the imagery to make it more immersive, to make it more moving, and yeah, all of that.
You plan to try to get it wider so that people can hear the story. You started as first book project.
For sure, yeah, we've gotten quite a good bit of press for the project just on this first go round on radio and online publications and newspapers. But yeah, that's why I'm applying to the larger grants and not really contests, but things like Center Santa Fe and larger funded contests where exhibitions and larger national or international exhibitions can be a part of, the prize, so that we can, get bigger exposure for it and then get more funding and just continue it. Yeah.
To be continued.
To be continued. Yeah, we'll do another one in a couple of years, I guess, huh?
Man, well, thank you so much for being here. This has been incredible.
It's an honor.
I am so...
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm just so proud of you in this work and seeing you get
And I'm
this
proud
far.
of you.
Oh,
You have kids now.
I do.
It's
It's unbelievable.
A lot has happened
A
since
lot has happened. A lot has happened.
we stopped. But
Next event.
this is only the first one.
It's only the first one. Next one is May 15th, TBA on our guest, but same spot, same time. Stay tuned to the Instagrams mainly, but whatever socials. What socials are we on? Threads and Instagram?
Facebook, I think, unfortunately.
Anybody use Facebook? Okay. Yeah, just check it out on the socials. I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you,
Yeah.
Jen and Julian again, and everyone who came, made the time to come and listen, and and just participate in this this creative experience that we've been doing for 9 years now.
9 years. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very
See you
much.
all soon.
Have a good night. Yep.